At this Council meeting, I've held a series of discussions with my fellow leaders on the Brexit deal, and I was crystal clear about the assurances which are needed on the backstop, having heard the views of MPs in the House of Commons. I reiterated that it is in the interests of the EU, as well as the UK, to get this over the line. A disorderly Brexit would be good for no one. At 27 level, the EU have published a series of conclusions. The EU made clear that it is their firm determination to work speedily on a future relationship or alternative arrangements which ensure no hard border by the 31st of December 2020, so that the backstop will not need to be triggered. If the backstop was ever triggered, it would apply only temporarily, and the EU would use its best endeavours to negotiate and conclude expeditiously a subsequent agreement that would replace the backstop. That the EU stands ready to embark on preparations so that negotiations on the future partnership can start as soon as possible. As formal conclusions, these commitments have legal status and therefore should be welcomed. As I've always said, the guaranteed way of avoiding the backstop is to have the future partnership in place by the time the implementation period is over. The EU is very firmly committed to this course. But MPs will require further assurances, and I've discussed that this morning with my EU partners, including Presidents Tusk, Juncker and others. I note that there has been reporting that the EU is not willing to consider any further clarification. The EU is clear, as I am, that if we are going to leave with the deal, this is it. But my discussions with colleagues today have shown that further clarification and discussion following the Council's conclusions is, in fact, possible. There is work still to do, and we will be holding talks in coming days about how to obtain the further assurances that the UK Parliament needs in order to be able to approve the deal. I say again, it is in the overwhelming interest of all our people, in the EU and the UK, to get this done and as quickly as possible. Now, I'll take a few questions. Laura.
Thank you, Prime Minister. First of all, you looked very angry when you were speaking to Jean-Claude Juncker earlier today. What did you say to him, and did he admit that he had called you nebulous? And secondly, the summit conclusions suggest the EU is not willing to budge, but you appear to be suggesting that they might. Can you tell us more about what they've said to you about their willingness to move? Because if Parliament won't budge and the EU won't budge, is it time for you to budge?
Well, first of all, I had a robust discussion with Jean-Claude Juncker. I think that's the sort of discussion you're able to have when you've developed a working relationship and you work well together. And what came out of that was his clarity that actually he'd been talking, when he used that particular phrase, he'd been talking about a general level of debate. And indeed, I've had further conversations with him through the morning. In relation to the question of the further assurances, as I say, there is work to be done. It's clear that clarification, we can look at this issue of further clarification, and that has been something I've been discussing with a number of EU leaders and with, obviously, as I said, President Tusk and President Juncker. So in the coming days, of course, there's a timetable for us. We will be bringing a vote back to Parliament before the 21st of January. So we will be working expeditiously over the coming days to seek those further assurances that I believe MPs will need. James.
Is it your problem here that your fellow leaders simply don't believe you can get this withdrawal agreement through Parliament, whatever they say or do? So why should they move heaven and earth to help you?
No, what was very clear from the fellow leaders that I've spoken to is that they want to ensure that this deal can get over the line, and they want to work with the UK to ensure that that is what happens. There's a very clear commitment to the deal, to seeing this as the best way forward, and to working with us in order to achieve that. Now, is Ollie here from the Times? Yes.
Oliver Wright from the Times. You say you got further reassurances today that the EU will look at a form of document, but why was that struck from the summit conclusions last night then?
No, what I've discussed with people today. First of all, let's be very clear about the summit about the 27 conclusions at 27. Those take us forward. Those are welcome. This is the clearest statement we have had yet from the European Union that it is their intention for the backstop never to be necessary, that it is their intention to ensure that if it were necessary, it was only temporary, and that it's their intention to work quickly with us, quickly once we've seen the deal being agreed, that we, in parliamentary terms, that they will then work with us to ensure that we start those negotiations for the future partnership. The key to all of this, the crucial thing in this relationship is what our future partnership with the EU is going to be. That will be the sustainable, enduring relationship we have with the EU in the future when we're no longer a member. And that is very clear from the EU today and from the conclusions that they gave last night. They want to get on with that. They want to get that partnership into place just as we do. Is Lynn here from The Sun? Sorry, I can't see. Yes.
Lynn Davidson from The Sun. Prime Minister, yes or no, would you be prepared to see Britain trade on WTO rules from March next year when we leave the European Union?
We will be, well, as you know, government is making no-deal preparations. We've stepped up those no-deal preparations. We'll be talking further about those no-deal preparations. My position's been very clear. I believe it's better to leave with a deal, with a good deal, and I believe the deal we have is a good deal. Now, I'll take a couple more. Jason.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Jason Groves from the Daily Mail. You look like you've had a trying week. What's been worse?
Something happened this week, Jason?
Well, I've read reports.
You shouldn't believe everything you read in the newspapers.
What's been more difficult? Has it been the malcontents at home, or has it been the Euro bullies over here? And have you ever felt like just throwing your phone in the bin, moving to a remote island and letting someone else sort this mess out?
Look, I've throughout all of this, I've been clear that there is a job to be done here, and it's a job to be done because it's a job for delivering on the vote of the British people in the referendum. I think that is absolutely important. I think it is our duty as a government and as a parliament to do that. And I never said it was going to be easy. Negotiations like this are always tough. There are always difficult times. And as you get close to the very end, then that can get even more difficult because you're absolutely sorting out the last details of something. But this is what drives me to carry on doing this and making sure we deliver, is that this is what's right for the British people. And this is what we're going to see out of this. It's not just us outside the EU, but us able to take the advantages that gives us and building that brighter future for Britain. Now, I was going to take one from Isabel here from Österreich. Yes. Sorry, Austria has the presidency currently, so yes. I thought it was appropriate to ask for...
Thank you. I'm from the Austrian press. I just wanted to ask you, what was your impression about the role of the Austrian presidency and Chancellor Kurz during these whole talks about to reach an agreement between the United Kingdoms and the European Union?
Well, Chancellor Kurz has been very helpful in the positive approach that he has taken to the negotiations of this deal and to wanting to make sure that both sides actually come out of this with a good deal. I think the Austrian president, he managed the Austrian presidency extremely well. I think it's been a very good presidency. I think we've seen this in the way he's been able to move forward on a number of the dossiers. So, as I say, he has been very positive in the support that he has given to ensuring that we get a good deal, a good presidency. Thank you.